Hello, everybody. This is Amber Hines again. I am a board member for the WP Accessibility Day conference, and I am so excited to be here today with Adam from WP Engine. Adam, can you introduce yourself and your role at WP Engine?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. This is fantastic. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Adam Traybold. I'm Director of Product Design at WP Engine. I head up our UX organization, so that includes product design and UX research. So we have a large team of people building, designing, um, and basically making products for hopefully lots of people that are watching this right now. And we love talking to our customers, working for our customers, and making sure that we're delivering products that not only like do the job, but make work easier, make life easier, and we have a good time doing it. So very passionate about accessibility. It's a cornerstone in how we approach things these days, and very excited to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, we are so excited to have you here. And I'll just say, as someone who's seen like your website and also the back end like customer portal and all of that, I will say I've watched and I've seen the evolution, and that you guys clearly have been putting a lot of effort into accessibility in your own products, which is really nice. So for everyone who is just tuning in, please feel free, if you are on YouTube, to pass any questions that you want me to ask Adam or any comments. We will definitely share those and engage with those as we can. Of course, the whole point of this live stream is to highlight WP Engine as one of our platinum sponsors for WordPress Accessibility Day, and to help get everyone excited about the event, which is coming up so soon, less than 30 days now. It will be on October 15th through 16th. So that full 24-hour period. Registration is open. So please make sure that if you have not already registered for the event, you go to 2025.wpaccessibility.day/register and get registered. It is totally free, thanks to wonderful sponsors like WP Engine. So, Adam, I would love to dive in with you all about what has kept WP Engine interested in sponsoring WordPress Accessibility Day. You have been a platinum sponsor for, I think, about as many years as we've restarted the event. So thank you so much for that. Can you share a little bit about why supporting this event is important to your team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, one of our core company values is do the right thing, and I think it just comes down to that. I mean, accessibility. I think a lot of organizations, companies, like over the years, I've been in the agency space, I've been in the product space, I've been in kind of all over the place, and in some places you get there and they think of it as this box to check or this nice thing to have if they get around to it, if they have the time. But when it comes to like making products for everyone and making products that are usable and lovable, it's really important that you're not just thinking about this narrow view, but you're thinking about anyone that might be working on your site. I mean, um, you know, accessibility, rather, excuse me, there's sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit over here. But
That's okay.
I'm
Totally
trying to
fine.
think of the right word is what's happening right now. It's like, but accessibility is not just for the you think of these extreme cases, but I mean, it's very common for people to have different abilities as they browse the internet. I mean, you think about WP Engine and our scale. On our best days, like something like 8% of the internet's traffic hits our servers, and so
Wow.
there's like that's a lot of people, and it would be irresponsible for us to say that oh, we don't need to think about those things because that's not for our user. I mean, absolutely is for our users. So we really take it seriously. We've built processes over the last couple of years specifically that are helping us get a lot more robust in our tooling and in our ability to make these things happen. And as you know, you've seen the improvements over the years. But we're work in progress, but we are, we really take it seriously, and that's why we're such a big advocate for events like this that help other companies take it seriously, that provide training and provide content around that. And we think it's just really critical that if we want to see a web that's for everyone, that accessibility is at the forefront of our minds as we're creating it. Um,
Yeah.
our mission statement is we power the freedom to create, and so if we're going to power that ability to create, it has to be for all, not just for a small subset.
Yeah. It is interesting too to think about that from a hosting provider perspective. And WordPress itself is about democratizing publishing, but there's this whole step that has to happen before someone can even set up a WordPress website, which is they have to figure out how to sign up for a host. And so if you're trying to give people that power to create, you have to have an accessible hosting dashboard and an accessible onboarding customer flow so that they can even get to that WordPress website in the first place, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you can't make the thing will not be made. I think a
Yeah.
lot about how the tools that we're given to create our work. In my world, it's a lot of Figma, it's a lot of Google Docs, etc. The tools that we make shape the outcomes, and if we want to shape outcomes, um, in this case, that are accessible for all, you have to give people the tools to do that, and you have to provide a space for those differing abilities to work and to thrive, so that the end result can be pushed forward as a result.
Mhm. Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about how this overall approach and philosophy has shaped the technology that you have and maybe your approach to community building around your technology as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the ways that we've been like improving our processes over the last couple of years is we've started doing regular VPATs, which, if you're not familiar, it's a voluntary assessment of the product,
Hmm.
that or of whatever you test, rather, that tells how well you're adapting to standards. Like WK, I think we do 2.2 AA is our sort of bare goal, and that results in an ACR, accessibility conformance report. And so we have built processes now in our company so that we can do those things regularly and have this sort of continuous monitoring going on, so that as we uncover new issues, like, we can actually take care of them and create the roadmaps that we need to create to go after these problems. And it's proactive, right? It's not reactive. It's not, oh, we get a call from someone and they're like, oh, I can't use. It's like, no, like, we want to be ahead of that. And so we've invested in software that helps us do that. We've invested in teams that help us do that. We've invested in just allowing people to have the time to talk about it and to work on it and, like, make improvements. And we've done a number of I guess, hack day style, let's go and fix all the things over the years, but we've also now really solidified, or are in the process of even more deeply solidifying these sort of continuous processes that help the nature of our work, just by default, support accessible outcomes. So whether it's in our design system at the root, or whether it's in the way that we QA PRs, and make sure that everything is up to par before it goes out. There's all sorts of ways that we've invested in those processes. Um, with regression testing, through our CI/CD pipelines, like all this sort of stuff. They're things that we've started really digging into, and I guess that's I guess, like, there has been like a community and a groundswell inside the company that also cares very deeply about it and ensures that all these things happen as well. So it's been very awesome to see, and it's, as you said, like, you can tell. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm really curious to learn more about that, going from, not having it as part of a regular process and making it a regular process. Did you have to do a lot of internal training for people? Did you go out and hire either contractors or employees that already had this expertise? How did you grow that knowledge internally to be able to move into that? This is just part of our daily practice.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, we are lucky that the type of people that we hire are very caring, thoughtful, very, like, technologically minded, human centric designers, and developers. And so a lot of them already have had and have passions around this, and, like, are, just by the nature of their own curiosity, have been very, very high advocates. Um, I mean, we've got a number of employees, like one of our people is a web development manager, has been a accessibility champion since like the late 90s, working on Section 508, and has been through a number of third-party assessments in past lives, and for like large companies, for governmental entities, so there's a lot of good in-house knowledge there. And
Was
then
that
also,
person hired because like did and you might not know this
I actually don't know
depending on
the
your
answer
role,
on
right?
on that
Like do you
one.
know
I
like
do
did
know,
somebody say at WPGen
yeah.
we need to go hire someone that has this breadth of accessibility knowledge, or is it just like, oh, you got lucky that you had that person on your team, or were they
Well,
hired for their accessibility knowledge?
yeah, that person specifically is on our marketing side, so I don't actually have much into the hiring process there. But I will say, as far as my
Mhm.
teams are concerned, and when we make hires, it is a trait that we look for. Like we want to make sure that our designers specifically understand those requirements, and are comfortable talking about those things, and know where to go if there's stuff they don't understand, and that are
Mhm.
curious, and willing to dig in when things pop up. And our tooling, we use a third party tool called Stark that helps our teams along that journey point out when there are things wrong. And if somebody does run into something that, oh, I wasn't aware of that, they have a very clear like pathway to go and learn about that. And so, um, I will say, you know, I won't say it's gotten lucky, because it has been an intentional part of like the traits of someone we hire.
Mhm.
So we definitely keep it in mind at the hiring layer for sure. Um,
So for
yeah.
any designers or developers out there that are trying to
Yes.
figure out how can I make myself more marketable, it sounds like growing your accessibility knowledge is a great way to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I look at like the way that the web is going, and this idea of agentic experiences, and you start hearing things, people talking about like generated UI, like on demand. That's something I think a lot about, is like, man, that as a designer, that's kind of scary. Like somebody can just like, plop out an interface, and you have to, and now as a designer, be thinking about your systems in whole new ways. And so, having these accessible principles at the core of what you're doing is critical, so that what comes out the other end isn't, awful. That's not to say we're necessarily building any of that kind of stuff, but it is things like, you look at like, 5 years down the line, like what's the web going to look like, and the more control that, we're not like designing individual screens potentially, the more control you give over to the computer, um, the more robust the sort of ground level has to be. And so it is very critical, that there's deep understanding at those core levels for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, it is interesting because you're always thinking, I don't think that the internet can change faster. And then the last, I don't know, 8 to 10 to 11 months
Yeah.
has really shown us that it can change so much faster than you even ever thought it could. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember, like when I was coming up, like there was no iPhone or apps, there was no, I remember designing my first like TV interface back in like 2009 or something. I don't even remember the year, but like, or 2011, I
Wow.
guess it probably would have been. And it's like these things that like, if you go back 20 years, like the whole internet has changed. I mean, that's the constant. And so, you got to be prepared for the future. You got to be thinking about the future. And to that point though, like accessibility, I think personally, well, not only in the legal landscape, there's requirements now where there weren't before, but in just the idea that like, how do we make the web more, even more, interactive, like a partner to you. You really have to be, in the systems layers that you're designing now, like you have to have those things locked.
Yeah, I think it is so interesting when you're thinking about accessibility as being something like allowing the content to morph into whatever format someone needs it in so that they can consume it. And I think when you start thinking about it in that way, you realize how applicable it is to all human beings
Oh,
because so many
absolutely.
of us use so many different kinds of technology and different devices and different browsers and like so many different ways to engage with websites. And
Absolutely.
and when you put it that way for clients, I think sometimes they're better able to understand why accessibility is the future and why accessibility is so important because it's not just about this abstract person that they think isn't their customer. It's about everyone on every device and being able to reach your maximum potential
Oh,
customers.
absolutely. And I think about like, like I have ADHD personally. I've gone into Claude or whatever and like said, "Hey, I have ADHD. Play ADHD coach here and help me learn this concept I'm trying to learn. Here's all the information on it. I'm not exactly getting it yet. Give me questions, give me prompts or whatever to help me kind of get through this thing so I can walk away with better understanding." And it will do that for me, you know? And so you actually get this tremendous power in the future, or where we are now even. Um, and and I think it's only a matter of time before like people expect that more than just when they ask for it, you know, like specifically, you know. And it's just I feel like we're gonna have sort of a renaissance there. So I'm really excited about the idea of personalization in the long term around like the personalized web. And yeah, it makes total sense that this would only become more important. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you talked a little bit about or mentioning that you had done some reworking and some auditing of WPEngine.com. I know you're also doing a redesign right now of the NitroPack website. Could you talk about some of the specific improvements that have been made or are going to be made, or things that are going to really make a difference on the accessibility front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, our tooling has become so much more robust that we can, you know, much more, I don't want to say efficiently, that's probably the wrong word, but we are just much better. We can much better understand what's actually out there, right? Like you can spend a lot of time like analyzing your code and like making sure that it's perfect and analyzing your Figma files so that what gets built is hopefully perfect. But there's always like the human factor in it. And like when things get built and they go out and then where something that's really old that doesn't get updated and you forget that it exists. And so
Mhm.
so there's a few different layers to that, right? So firstly, it's like, what are our standards as an organization when we like go to design a thing, whether it's a marketing website or a product experience or whatever. um and that is, has been solidified, right? Like we target WCAG 2.2 delay. Not saying we're perfect. We got a lot of ground to cover. We're working towards it actively. And so you have to have your organizational standards in place. And that requires then that you redesign the things that need to be redesigned, or go back in the code and sort of and take care of the other issues. Obviously not everything is done in design, right? Alt
Mhm.
tags, you're not defining alt tags in Figma yet. Maybe you can if you really have those processes. But so I think the design layer is really critical. But then on the dev layer, you want to have the processes in place to catch things before they go out. You want to have
So, like, linting?
yeah, and I think about too, just like having formal QA and standards just goes such a long way, and like everybody being aligned and like making those things real. And then that continuous monitoring that I talked about a little bit before was like you have to have the systems that can catch the things that you're not seeing, and
Mhm.
so I am not super in on the marketing side of the house that does our .com and all of that, but I am on the product side where we do, and it's honestly it's actually quite difficult on a product side because you're dealing with so many different partial code files, and you're dealing with authentication layers like that to actually get that analysis done. And so making sure that those
Mhm.
tools are available and working, and dedicating the time on a team basis to make sure that if it's not happening manual or automatically, that it can happen manually at a more robust scale. And I think those are the things that um, there's just lists like from a specificity angle. It's hard to say a specific thing, right? But in total, you see, oh, you're failing in this bullet of the WCAG, go in and fix that, like, and actually like setting those roadmaps. Um, you know, you can sort of attack both angles at the same time, because then the things that go out in the future are by default more likely to hit where you need to hit, and then you've got that sort of fail-safe for those things, but also you're kind of proactively going back and looking at past work and then bringing it up to speed. Over the last couple of years, we've gone through brand redesigns, and which involved redesigning our portal, and we're working on other areas like that, I mean, including like NitroPack, right? You mentioned they're working on a new website. So there's all this work constantly going on. And so that challenge of like that stuff always being in motion and then also having to go back and fix stuff, like that's
Yeah.
like an actual, it's an area of tension, especially in a company of our size. And so I've been really
Mhm.
proud of how we've been able to sort of rally around that and make sure that we're attacking it from both angles. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I don't I know this probably isn't your area of expertise, but we got a question in
Yeah,
the chat from Dave who asked, and maybe you can say if you don't know, but do you know when WP Engine took over Advanced Custom Fields, did they do any plugin accessibility audits? And is when you all take over plugins, which I know you don't do that very frequently, but you do
sure,
sometimes,
sure.
do you, does accessibility auditing come into the play there? Do you know?
Um, I'm not sure if they did one like as part of the acquisition. I wasn't involved. I didn't really know until we acquired them, and then I was so excited because I've used ACF on every site I've ever built in my entire life. And I was like, now I
Oh
get to
yeah,
work with
me
that
too.
designer every day. Hell yeah, you know. I was super excited. Um,
Yeah.
but I will say, like in the coming months, year, the timeline, however long it takes, because sometimes these things are really complicated. This sort of proactive auditing that is going to come to our other products, and we do as a process of the design process, keep in mind as things are getting designed. Hey, is this actually, we have a plugin design system for that reason, where all that stuff's sort of at the core, and then we also make sure our designers, as they're doing QA, until we get those sort of formalized processes in place, which a lot of our plugins don't have right now, the that they're very attuned to, like, hey, does this have all the appropriate things? Now things get missed, right? And that's why we're constantly working on getting better. The but it's I know, I work with that designer actually quite a bit, and so I know that that's what's happening, and with our design system layer, and with the developers that are working on that project, it's a factor. So always getting better, improvements,
Mhm.
are coming down the line, on the areas that it's loose. So yeah. But again, I'm sorry. I wish I knew about the
The
acquisition
answer on that
process, but
one.
but when we acquire companies, right? Like, um, my hope is that when we have new companies join our company, that we only make them better. So if something comes to us and it's not perfect, like, how do we make it perfect? How do we make it great? I like to call, even when we're doing new products, like, what's the minimum lovable thing, not just the minimum viable thing.
Bible
I
thing.
think,
Oh, that's a nice concept.
yeah, and I mean, I think our founder, Jason Cohen, I think he wrote a blog post a while ago called, like, "Simple, Lovable, and Complete." I really identify with that verbiage also, because it's like, you don't just want to make something that checks the boxes. You want to make something that people can actually, like, get behind, and so that's something that we take really seriously, and so that folds into it. All that folds into it, like, and honestly, that stuff's more at the foundational layer than anything. Is like, well, first, does it work? Like, and I actually believe
Mhm.
that if something is not, uh, you know, is not accessible to that level, like, then it doesn't really work, and we can't really say that it works. So we work really hard to make sure that we're thinking about those things.
Yeah, I do remember, and maybe this work started before the acquisition, but I remember sometime not too long, but after ACF joined WP Engine, that there was a big release where the settings pages were made keyboard navigable because they had not been keyboard navigable. So I don't know if that was a WP Engine
I gave
inspiration or if
I
they'd
gave
already
feedback on
started
that
that
work. Yep.
work,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I mean, there's been
did
and
you
there's been a
help with
number.
that?
Well, I didn't help with it. I mean, I helped in the sense that, like, I got to crit the work. We do design crit
Oh,
processes, but
okay.
all that stuff is just, our designer on that team, Dale, is just awesome, and so thoughtful of a designer. And I remember that stuff being focused on. I mean, he's done quite a few redesigns of ACF components and all of that over the last couple of years. That all drives towards that, and through the plugin design system, which we've created over the last couple of years too, that we're getting more formalized, and like, it's even going to be better in our other stuff too, because we'll be able to leverage that work and apply it.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you have any advice for WordPress developers or agencies or site owners that want to start focusing on accessibility more in their projects and maybe aren't sure where to start?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, first, familiarize yourself with what's required. It's actually, like, it's pretty robust, like the WCAG specs. It's kind of intimidating. There are some really great um, resources online that help with that. Understanding, Stark, the product we use, has really great docs that you don't have to have an account to read, I don't believe. So, I mean, you can just go
Can
and
you
and
talk?
and
I'm familiar with Stark. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I'm like, can you, because you've mentioned it a few times, can you describe Stark, how it integrates in Figma and what you do with it? Just
Yeah, so
for anyone who's
yeah,
interested.
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. It's one of the tools that we use more and more every day, I think. And so there's the sort of way I got introduced to Stark was through a Figma plugin where it would assess the contrast ratio and all that really easily. And there's a number of those products out there. Contrast was one I used to use a lot from I think MDS did that one. And um, uh, but that was how I got introduced to it. But now they have this whole suite of products where you've got CI/CD integration where it's scanning your code, or you have it'll run reports for you, like it'll analyze everything that you feed to it. You have it track Figma files, you can have it track you know your code files, and they're doing just a ton of innovation there on that front. And it's just really helpful because helps save you that manual toil. Because when you get to the state like a company we are, where it's a really robust set of products. I mean, we have probably I think like 18 products, something like that. And when you really break it down, it's like that's a lot. And so any kind of tooling that can help us untangle the mess. But I think to someone who's new to it, you know, just understanding like the typographic stuff, the contrast stuff, the code based, alt tags and all that kind of stuff. When you actually break it down, it's not that complicated. Like it's not hard to
Mhm.
understand. The sometimes the documentation of it all, the WK, like the actual stuff, can make it seem like harder than it actually is. But it does take, and I think this is one of the things when you spec out a website build for someone and you give them a quote or whatever, you got to be sure not to under quote yourself, because it's not zero work, and
Mhm.
it's not something you can just sort of staple on at the end. You have to actually be thinking about it from the beginning. And
Can you
and I think it's
say,
a value prop you can use to sell to your customers also, that you know how to
mhm,
approach this from the start.
do you have any, this kind of brings up like an interesting, that whole pricing thing, which I'm sure we could have a whole conversation
Oh yeah.
about. But I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on how much extra percentage wise work it might be? Like if someone were to approach that pricing
Oh, that's
question in that way, if you were
that's
not
really
doing
hard.
any accessibility, like how
Yeah,
much
I mean, I
is it,
think
50% more work?
oof,
Right? Like,
I wouldn't say I mean, it really depends on the complexity of your site. Like if you've got audio stuff and you've
mhm,
got, all kinds of video, and that needs transcriptions or captions, or whatever, that you don't have tools to do that. But, like it goes deeper than just the like, I'm writing the code or I'm designing the brand language or whatever, right? Uh, Personally, uh, uh, yeah, I don't want to describe a percentage of extra work to it, because I actually do believe it should be something that every designer does and every developer does, just as a process of the work. It should be just included in
default.
what you do is by default. So, but it is something I think you should ask as someone who might be buying a website. Hey, are you going to develop it this way? That said, like it's more valuable for it to be that, from the get. And so, um, I do think, you know, premium work means a lot of things, right? It can mean you're a really great, designer. You're going to make really fast performant code. You're going to do it really quick because you've been doing this for, however long, and you know really what you're doing. But I think it also means that like you're covering bases, and you're making sure that it's actually good work at the foundation. And I think that's where this work sort of falls into. So I would charge more for that, if you are doing that, and you should use that as a value prop with your customers, because then they're not going to get in trouble later when they get a cease and desist from someone that says, "Hey, your site can't be up anymore," because, I mean, with the EAA that just passed in June, there's a lot of risk now on, especially if you're like an e-commerce business, or you're
Mhm.
selling things that, so you got to be really careful there, and really thoughtful in your work, because nobody wants to get their store shut down, like,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, for sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so that's value that you can provide.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's
Well, and
not,
I think
yeah,
it's a degree of future proofing too. Like we talked
sure.
about earlier in our conversation that, accessibility is not going anywhere, and making people being able to access websites with all kinds of different ways is what the future is. And I think if you think about building a website for your clients that they has longevity,
Mhm.
then that's where this like accessibility, performance, security, all of that kind of comes in.
Absolutely. And it really does, like, help with that scaffolding being strong. It's like, it's like you can throw a bunch of useless frameworks on a website and make it really slow, but make it look really cool, and then you go in some browser in a year and it doesn't work anymore. Or you can start with HTML, you can make sure it's semantic, and you can start with, good CSS, and I think of it like that, where it's like that foundational layer has to be strong for you to, for it to be good, work. And so
Mhm.
I think it's so critical. And I actually think it's great that we're seeing these requirements pop up now, because it's forcing us to analyze and to get good at it, and to make sure that we're practicing what we preach, right? So we you know yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I would love to switch gears and talk a little bit more about the conference. Um, October 15th is when we're
Yeah.
kicking off. Have you had a chance to look at the schedule? And do you have any talks that you think look interesting that you'll be tuning in for?
Oh yeah. I saw a number of them that actually seemed really, really relevant. I'm like, I need to, I want this information myself. I think the one that stood out to me a lot, maybe you could catch this from, how what we've been talking about, but like, I built this with an AI, but is it accessible? It's like,
Oh,
a
yeah.
really, really pertinent one right now. I think, I know I've built things in various tools, whether it's Cloud Code or Replit or Cursor. I've been in all in like, I mean, Figma now has a thing you can spit out sites, and I
Oh, no,
think,
that one I will take away any ambiguity. That one is not accessible. You
no,
don't
it's
even need to
definitely
wait for the talk for that one.
the
Go
time I
try
tried it, it
Figma
was not.
Sites.
I know these things are in progress, so I don't
I think
like,
everything
you
is a
know,
div in Figma Sites.
that is
Like,
that
even the
is that was
links
my
are
experience.
like
That was my
divs with a
experience.
roll of link or something.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, and so, like, if you don't know to look for that stuff, and to fix it before it goes out, or then, like, the web will quickly become a mess. Because, um, you know, it's not just, these aren't just tools for, people with differing abilities too. Like you said, keyboard navigation earlier. Like, I use that all the time, and I am,
Mhm.
sighted, and all of that. And so, it's just gonna, if we let that stuff go, unchecked, then we will end up in a bad spot for everyone. But anyway, that one's a very, very pertinent one that I'm excited about. I also, you know, the accessibility lawsuits, talk. I think it's accessibility lawsuits in WordPress, the violations every business needs to know. That one really stood out to me, because there are all these opaque rules, and they differ by country, and there's actual legal teeth coming behind those. There already has been through, like, the ADA and all of that. Less enforceable, but now at the EAA in June. Then there's new requirements come 2030, for existing things. Um, I feel like that one's gonna have a lot of good information. I'm very excited about that one. Um, yeah, but if you're new to this, the typography, readability, and digital accessibility one seemed like a really pertinent one, because those are sort of some of the basics, that I think
Mhm.
are probably pretty important for anyone who's just coming into this, brand new.
Yeah. The thing that I'm kind of looking forward to the typography one too, because I always think it's so interesting, like, just the art of choosing a font face,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
one of those things that half the time you're just
Welcome to
like,
my life.
no, like, just go pick a random one off Google Fonts. It looks
Oh yeah,
okay, or that appeals to you. But there is so much about that that can impact the whole, like, feeling of a website, and
absolutely,
like how easy it is for someone to absorb the content just based on the
absolutely,
font. It's
absolutely. And
and a
by
lot of us
culture,
barely put
by
thought
everything,
into it.
yeah. And as someone with, like I mentioned earlier, ADHD, and been a designer now
Mm.
for a couple of decades at this point, like, um, I'm looking for anything to help me narrow down my choices when it comes to typography. So, any guidance there is great. Um, but that also, another session that looked really good is the brand design one. That's something that, as we've
Mhm.
refreshed our brand in the last couple of years, and as we look forward into, where do we take it from here, building those principles in at the base is so critical. I mean, I was part of Flywheel before we got acquired by WP Engine, and before we got acquired from WP Engine, we realized a bunch of our colors weren't accessible on white. Like specifically
Oh,
the
like the
most of,
green was too soft or
and
something?
and maybe the brand blue also. And so we were using it as like text links and all over the place. And so
Mm,
we did a massive thing back in I think 2018 or something, to short that stuff. And then when I came to V Engine, within the last couple of years when we were doing our brand stuff, we also, as that stuff was happening, I mean, you should see the color palette then versus now. I mean, everything was tuned up tight. We've exploded the crap out of it. And now it's like it's amazing, and it's so helpful when you bake those things in, at the root level, because then when you're like trying to figure out, oh, what color should I use for this background of a button, or what color should I use for this, this color flood area or something with the text on top of it, you don't have to like spend all your time measuring things because it's already there. Like it already works. And uh it's so helpful if you work on a team of any size, or if you're using your identity and applying it and touch points, like to have that stuff there. So if you work at an agency, if you work on brand identity, brand strategy, like I feel like that's probably a good one for you too, because
mhm.
it's been so helpful. And it actually was like in our earlier accessibility, I'd say like formalized efforts, that's actually been the driver, is like, hey, our brand identity is making it hard for us to do this well, because we just, it was an oversight, so how can we fix that, how can we make it better? And yeah, I'm going to attend that talk as well.
So I'm going to put you on the spot now because what I just heard from you sounds like a really great pitch for your application to speak next year.
Oh
I
man.
would love to see a talk that's literally like, here were our brand colors before, here are our brand colors after, and
you know
how we got from A to B and why.
I'll pass that to the
I think
designer
that
that
would
did
be
that work.
so interesting.
I would love to see that talk too, actually, because it was a real journey. And you know, when you want to be expressive on the internet, and when you want to be like a charismatic brand, like color is critical. But so many great colors are just, they do not work in this context. And so you have troubles with blues, with oranges, with reds, with yellows. I mean, the spectrum, right? And so it can be a real challenge to find those magic intersection points that not only like technically work, but also like philosophically and like emotionally work. And so the team did a ton of work there, and that wasn't just me. That wasn't just the brand designer that was working on it. I mean, there was like, I mean, 10
Lots of
people,
people. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a very large group trying to testing things out, making fake mocks, like, really trying to push these things forward. And then you think about like, oh, what about like if we want to do a dark mode someday? Or what about if we, like there's all these like things, and
Ifs, yeah, in the future.
yeah, they're
You
gotchas.
you know what you might find interesting? I don't know if you've seen this before, but have you ever looked at IBM's
Oh yeah.
accessibility website?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
have they basically what they came up with for their colors for all of their designers and all of the people who have the ability to choose colors is because they use a lot of like tint gradients, I guess is maybe the best way to put it, where you're allowed to use within a certain tint of
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
brand color. But they actually came up with a rule, and I can't remember what the exact, so I'm going to make this number up, but they'll say like you can choose, they have to be like 6 steps away from each other or something. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
really easy to just know if something is going to pass and fail contrast without even having to test it because you can just see how many steps away they
Yeah.
are from
Yeah.
each other on the tint shade. And it's
That's
kind of an
awesome. Yeah.
interesting thing if you think about that. Like, how do we communicate how to use these brand colors to maybe people who are less familiar with contrast and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, and I know like in our system we have like the approved, like the ones that go together well, like we have them documented. So like you can just like look at the list and say, these are the ones that,
oh, okay. These are
when you want to go
okay.
content.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that it just helps so much. And that's I think why like it's so critical to be thinking about these things at the root, not just at like the code and what goes out the door. Because the system can set you up for success, or it can set you up for failure. So it's always better to do the one that's going to set you up for success, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
For
Um,
sure, for sure. All right, well, maybe everyone we can look forward to that talk next year. But in the meantime, please go to register for this event, which again, if you missed in the beginning, WP Engine is a platinum sponsor for WordPress Accessibility Day, and it is coming up very soon on October 15th through 16th. You can register for free at 2025.wpaccessibility.day/register. You can get, I'm not wearing this year's t-shirt because I wore it earlier in the week, but I'm wearing, well, actually, no, not last year, a couple of years ago's t-shirt. But if you want, you can make a donation, get a t-shirt, or you can just register for free and get all of these great talks that we have been talking about and more for straight 24 hours of accessibility goodness on Zoom. It has been really fun having you here today. Adam, can you give us, if anyone wants to follow up with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, my DMs are open on LinkedIn if you want to find me there. That's probably the internet space social media space I'm still keeping alive these days. And yeah, please feel free if you've got any questions or comments. Like my door's open. So thanks so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, and of course, the best place to find WP Engine is at wpengine.com, or you can visit their sponsor page on the WordPress Accessibility Day website and find some information out from them as well. I think they sometimes do a giveaway or some swag during the event, which you have to be registered to get access to. So thank you so much, Adam. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.